9. One person is dead. The alleged killer may soon be roaming the streets free. Why is that? Well, because leaders of the Democratic Party are starting to believe, internalize the belief, act on the belief that illegal aliens have more rights than American citizens. Look at this picture. This is Ivan Zamaripa Castaneda. Look closely. That is, in fact, an Ace of Hearts tattoo on his face. But that's not the problem with this man. The problem is twofold. First, he's an illegal alien. Second, over the weekend in Denver, police say he got drunk and slammed his car into a semi-truck. The truck burst into flames. The driver was burned to death. Rather than stay at the scene, Zamaripa Castaneda fled the scene. He was later arrested. Now he faces charges of vehicular homicide. And then politics got involved, which is why we're bringing this to your attention tonight. Federal authorities have asked Denver to detain this man so he can be arrested on federal charges and deported back to Mexico, where he's from and should be living. But no, they can't. Why? Because Denver is a sanctuary city, and that means that Democratic politicians there are committed to protecting the accused killer, even if it means he'll soon be loose in downtown Denver, and he may be. As soon as he posts a $25,000 bond, he will be free to go until his next court date. That's assuming he bothers to show up in court. And by the way, why would he? He snuck into this country. He's going to go to court? Probably not. When Democrats say they're committed to protecting undocumented immigrants, this is who they're talking about. They believe illegal aliens accused of murder deserve to be protected from you more than you deserve to be protected from them. They care more about Ivan Zamaripa Castaneda than they care about you. They'll ignore and undermine federal law on his behalf. Would they do that for you? I don't think so. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has filed suit to stop insanity like this. The Department of Justice has sued the state of California. It's a sanctuary state that has explicitly announced it will punish citizens there for cooperating with the federal government in the pursuit of enforcing immigration law. Democrats in California are outraged by what the Attorney General has done. They're calling him the real criminal. Watch.
What Jeff Sessions said is simply not true. And I call upon him to apologize to the people of California, to bringing the mendacity of Washington to California and trying to insert discord and division.
How dare you vilify members of our community by trying to frighten the American public into thinking that all undocumented residents are dangerous criminals?
How dare you? This is how the left has begun to think. If you believe accused murderers who shouldn't be in this country ought to go back to their own countries, you're the one who's out of line. If you believe in borders, you're a monster. This isn't your country. It belongs to other people now. That's the message they're sending explicitly. The Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, joins us right now. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So this is, I think it's fair to say, an emergency if a city government is making it possible for an accused killer to go free simply because they're morally opposed to federal immigration law. That's setting up a conflict between the state and the federal government. How can this be stopped? What's the next step here?
The American people have got to speak first and foremost to these governmental leaders. It's just unacceptable to take this case in Denver that you just cited, where the individual will be released from jail. Our ICE officers are not going to stop looking for him. They're going to go out to find him. They'll be at greater risk. They'll place people in the community at greater risk to try to make an arrest there when they could have been safely picked up in the custody from the custody of the Denver authorities. So this situation is very, very serious, and it represents a commitment from the hard left, these activist groups, to open borders and non-legal enforcement of immigration. Cannot be the policy of the United States of America.
So some Democratic politicians say the states are not, and I think they're legally correct, are not obligated to carry out federal law. But then others, including the mayor of Oakland, have gone farther and actively tried to subvert federal law, as Mayor Libby Schaaf of Oakland did the other day by warning people that federal agents were coming. Does that constitute obstruction of justice, and should she be prosecuted for that?
We're looking at that. Our fabulous ICE officers and Tom Homan are keeping us posted on what's really happening there. Those kind of things depend on the law and the facts, and we'll evaluate them at the Department of Justice. But yes, this is a radical ideology. It's contrary to the American law. The supreme law of the land is American immigration law, and it must be enforced, else we'll just have open borders, and that cannot be.
Well, we have open borders in effect in a lot of ways. Now we're getting something that looks like insurrection almost. The biggest state saying we're going to actively work to undermine basic federal law. Do you worry that the country won't hang together?
I don't think so. I think this is an extreme act. When I was in California, I heard countless people tell me they were embarrassed and outraged about what was going on. I think these people have just been able to get away with it and not been challenged intellectually as to the meaning of what they're doing, how radical it is, how unacceptable it is, how it places the lives of American police officers and ICE officers at greater risk, as well as our communities at greater risk, because we keep criminals in the country that are due to be deported.
Do you see how, if you're looking on as an observer of this, it does seem like the federal government is toothless in the face of this challenge? Elected officials stand up, give the finger to federal immigration authorities, to law enforcement. With impunity, it does seem like the mayor of Oakland has more power than the feds.
Well, Tucker, whether we're going to use every lawful tool we have to push back against this activity, you can be sure of that. I will say, however, that ultimately in this country, the American people have the final word, and they have got to analyze what their leaders are doing, and if they're promoting these kind of unlawful, unwise, and dangerous policies, they need to be held to account. And when the political needle starts moving, I think you'll see politicians start changing.
The Attorney General you replaced, one Attorney General before that, Eric Holder, has endorsed this. Do you think it's odd that a former chief law enforcement officer in the country would be endorsing ignoring federal law?
Well, he's being hired by the state, being paid a legal fee to represent the state of California. But I totally believe that this policy that they're defending in California is unwise and in many places clearly illegal. And we're going to challenge its legality, and we're going to challenge its wisdom, and we're going to defend federal law officers and state law officers who are out there trying to do their duty every day and are being placed at much greater risk because they won't even let the police talk to the federal officers, who are the only ones that can actually deport a criminal alien.
So just to switch gears, I think a lot of people, certainly I think a lot of our viewers, have lost confidence in law enforcement and intelligence gathering agencies in this country because they think they've been used for political purposes to spy on Americans without real cause. And Carter Page, I think, would be at the top of that list. Don't you think it would go a long way to restoring public confidence in those agencies if the rest of us had some sense of the basis upon which the FISA warrants were gotten for spying on Carter Page?
It is our responsibility, and I think my responsibility, to ensure that the FISA process is carried out professionally, properly, lawfully, and with integrity. I intend to do that. We are working on that now. Our Office of Inspector General has almost 500 employees, investigators, and prosecutors, and they're going to work on this and get to the bottom of it.
But could we see, I mean, because there's so much lying about this, from partisan lying, maybe from both sides, I know from one, about why the court granted the government the right to spy on this American citizen. Wouldn't it just dispel all the myths and the conspiracies if we could see, redacted of course, but if we could see the basis for it?
Well, we've never produced publicly the FISA warrants, but I have to tell you, Tucker, we've produced more documents, in this case more information to the Congress and to the public than I think any Attorney General's office in history has. We're going to go as far as we can go to make things public, and we're going to ensure.
So you don't think we need a special prosecutor to look into this?
Well, we're going to get to the bottom of it. It could be one day that a special prosecutor would be required, but we're going to look at this both with attorneys and within the Inspector General's office, and they will get to the bottom.
So you're giving a speech tomorrow essentially about the rule of law, I think. I read a copy of it, to the Federalist Society, and it raised a question in my mind about judges. Shouldn't the Congress act as a counterbalance against judicial overreach? If there's a judge who is clearly not even consulting the Constitution and making law, why wouldn't the Congress try try to balance that out?
You know, it's gotten to the point where Congress, I think, has been too willing to cede its powers. I felt that when I was a member of the Congress. I feel it even more so now as the Attorney General. When I'm finding single judges, 1 out of 600, issue an executive order, an injunction, a court injunction against executive orders of the executive branch of the United States without a foundation for that. You could have 10 other judges who oppose it, but the one who enjoins it, their opinion is upheld. It may take 18 months to get the matter to the Supreme Court. It is disrupting the ability of this government to function, and I'm really concerned about it. It's time for the nation to reconsider these injunctions.
Yeah. I mean, that's not democracy. That's a monarchy or something. Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it. Raul Reyes is an attorney and a columnist. He joins us tonight. Raul, thanks for coming on. So we normally speak in airy generalizations. Let's talk specifics quickly about what's going on in Denver right now.
Sure.
An illegal alien has been charged with vehicular homicide. The feds say he's broken federal immigration law. We want to take custody of him. And for ideological reasons, the city is saying, no, if he posts 25 grand bail, he's going to walk free. Hard to see how anybody could support something like that. Why wouldn't we deport someone who's been credibly accused of murder?
Well, right, exactly. He should be once he's tried and convicted. But the problem here is that ICE did not issue a warrant for this individual. What they did was they issued a detainer. And ICE in Colorado, they issued, per their statement, they issue between 35,000 and 40,000 detainers a day. They say they don't have the time to go through the paperwork to fill out the additional request that is involved with a warrant. And because they did not do that, this individual was allowed to be released from custody. That's the problem.
Okay,
and that makes the case, in a sense, for having immigration priorities.
Oh, okay. So I guess if someone's accused of homicide, that would put him right at the top of the priority list. And yet ideologues like the people in charge in Denver are basically saying his rights are more important than those of American citizens who live in Denver, who are going to be exposed to this guy when he walks out of jail after posting $25,000 bail.
No, I think
so where are their rights? Who's looking out for their rights?
I think our Constitution is looking out for their rights. And the fact is, all people, including the undocumented, do have certain rights under our Constitution. The reason that the law enforcement authorities in Denver did not detain this individual because there are court rulings in the Supreme Court and the lower courts, most specifically, I think recently, the Mendoza case that says these local jurisdictions will be at risk of liability for double jeopardy if they hold someone for a second time.
So let me just say, so are you actually
honor warrants? They do not honor detainers.
You know, that's very, it's, as we both know, and I just want our audience to know that what you're saying is disingenuous. It has nothing to do with their fealty to Supreme Court decisions. Those are a joke to the left, as you know. Are you actually arguing that the federal government has no right to take someone into custody when they know for a fact that he is breaking federal immigration law? He's not supposed to be here. He's an illegal alien, and they don't have a right to detain him? Is that what you're saying? The federal government has
the right to take people into custody provided they follow the proper procedure prescribed by the statute. And the statute in this instance requires that they fill out the forms for a warrant, which should be either issued by a judge or a criminal warrant, which can be sworn out. They did not do that. They only issued the detainer, and that's why he was released.
Yeah. This has been, you're wrong, let me just say that. This has been going on for a long time in precisely the way that I described has now been thwarted by politically ambitious politicians who want votes, as you know. But let me just step 3 steps back and ask you.
But this policy is actually based on court rulings, not ideology of politicians. It's based on court rulings that these local law enforcement officials are following because they don't want the financial liability.
Does it bother you that a guy credibly accused of homicide is going to walk out when he shouldn't have been here in the first place?
Sure.
Okay.
But I also trust that local law enforcement, that they are following the processes prescribed by law. In this case, the Denver police, and they do not want to face lawsuits from these different individuals.
Lawsuits. Okay, so how about doing the right thing? So if
advocacy groups, and most importantly, they don't want to be sued by other authorities for not complying with federal law.
So let me say this. Why wouldn't the Denver Sheriff's Department call ICE and say, by the way, he's getting out now, he's walking out the front door, grab him, which they're allowed to do?
They are allowed to do that, but they do not do it because ICE did not issue a warrant.
They don't need to. Hold on, ICE does not. Slow down. That's not true. No, there's no difference. ICE does not need a warrant to pick that guy up off the street. Sorry, you're wrong. So why wouldn't the Denver...
We're talking about two separate different things. You are correct. ICE does not need a warrant to pick someone else.
I know I'm correct. I know I'm correct. So that's why I'm asking you a very simple question.
When they're getting the local law enforcement to hold someone beyond the prescribed term. In this case, that's the exact circumstances.
Let me just ask one last question, and then I'll let you go. If you really cared about the safety of American citizens in Denver, which the left demonstrably doesn't care about, but let's say you just did for the sake of argument. Let's say you were continuing to pretend you cared. Why wouldn't you, if you're the Denver Sheriff's Office, the second, call them and say, this guy's leaving at this hour, be waiting for him? Why wouldn't they do that? What's the answer? They're not going to get sued for that.
Because as ICE itself has said, they are issuing on a daily basis, a weekly basis, between 35 and 40,000 of these detainers.
I'm not talking about 35. I'm talking about this guy, the guy charged with homicide. Why wouldn't they do it in this specific case? Will Denver do that? Why wouldn't they?
The reason they did not was because, again, ICE did not make him a priority by failing to get the warrant for him. Because they did not get the warrant, the local law enforcement did not take it seriously. The local law enforcement does need a warrant in order to hold him.
You know what they need?
That's based on the Mendoza case and multiple local legal rulings.
I just explained how they could do it. They're not doing it because they don't care. That's the truth, and you know it. Raul, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We've got a Fox News alert for you. A hostage situation taking place at the nation's largest veterans home. Shots were fired this morning at the home in Yountville, California. 3 hostages were taken. Police have locked down the facility. They're attempting to negotiate at this hour with the attacker. He's reportedly armed with a rifle and contained to a single room. So far, we don't know anything about the motive or the identity of the suspect. Obviously, we'll follow this story as it continues to evolve and bring you details. Well, in a pretty unexpected twist, the president's decision to ridicule the leader of North Korea as Little Rocket Man turns out to be kind of working out. North Korea has proposed a face-to-face meeting between the two leaders. If it happens, it'll be the first ever summit between a sitting American president and a dictator from North Korea. In response, a lot of our foreign policy geniuses melted down.
I think, frankly, it's a dangerous gamble and a bad idea. And in some ways, I can't believe I'm saying that because for years I've been arguing that we need to have direct talks between the U.S. and North Korea.
I'm in the more of the you must be kidding camp. We've just given Kim Jong-un something for nothing.
It was a breathtaking gamble, according to one report. Do you agree?
I do. It is a roll of the nuclear dice.
Philippe Reines is a former advisor to Hillary Clinton and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and he joins us tonight. Philippe, thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
So I'll just be totally honest, because why not? I have no idea what this will lead to, if anything. You could see it going wrong. You could see it taking unexpected and positive directions. Like, who knows? What I know for certain is that almost everybody you just saw on TV is dumb, has a long track record of terrible
One of them was
decisions.
my best friend, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure, but... Every one of those people has advocated foreign policy positions that have been a disaster for the United States repeatedly, and they're never called to account. So I guess the fact that this was unexpected yesterday should have surprised us. Why are we still listening to these people?
Well, I think it was surprising everybody, and I think President Trump definitely has an I told you so in him, but I think he has a fair number of people who work for him to say I told you so too. I don't think Secretary of Defense Mattis or Secretary of State Tillerson saw this coming.
I think you're right.
Or thought that the language last year, the tweets, were a good thing. So what he did instinctively on his own. To the extent that the establishment got it wrong, if they got it wrong, we'll see, but it's not partisan. I mean, people just...
I totally agree with you. I absolutely agree with you.
And I happen to... I've always thought, when I worked for the Obama administration, I hated the way we handled North Korea. I hated the way Bush did. It was always treating them like they deserved to be treated as an equal. I thought we should just ignore them. You know?
Right.
I at one point wanted to say, if you can't launch a rocket that doesn't reach, the outer atmosphere, we're not going to talk about you. But President Trump, he inherited something a little different. He inherited North Korea at a time when they've been harder to ignore. They have clearly made technological advances, both in their missiles and their bomb stuff. And he, 6 months ago, I would have told you that if we weren't alive in a year, North Korea would have something to do with it, and President Trump's bellicose language.
Well, a lot of people felt that way, and to be fair, and I just want to be honest, you're right. A lot of people at his own State Department, the president's own State Department, would have agreed with you after 2 drinks in private, for sure. So maybe the lesson of all of this is that you don't necessarily need to insult foreign leaders, even evil ones, but maybe you need to think a little more broadly. What we've been doing isn't working, and nobody in Washington is willing to acknowledge that because they're implicated in past bad decisions. Well, so shouldn't we go forward with a maybe more open mind?
We should, and frankly, I don't know anyone was surprised that he agreed to a meeting and agreed to it fast. I mean, you know, to the extent that our diplomacy is slow and plodding and doesn't work, right, might as well blow it up. We could be sitting here in 6 months and having a conversation about how this was an absolute debacle. And, you know, you spent a lot of time focusing on immigration, and there have been times in the last months where you have not liked what the president said on immigration. True. That the Republican Party has not liked what they hear from him, including on TV. Yeah. And this is going to be pretty similar. I mean, not that it'll be on TV, although let's all hope it will be. But there are a lot of stakeholders here. For America, we're all one at this point, because if Kim does something crazy, he's going to blow us up irrespective of what party we're part of. But you have the South Koreans, you have the Japanese, you have the Chinese, and I know you're always very interested in the Chinese. This is a problem. If he goes in there and he says, I'm a great deal maker, you really have to look at what deals he's made in his life. He tends to overpay. Well, this is... And if he overpays for this deal, then someone's going to suffer. And it's probably going to be someone other than us. But Kim Jong-un is not nuts. No, I agree. This is complex. But what we know is that previous strategies failed, which is why we're here in the first place. So I have an open mind. Fleet, thank you. No, thank you for being honest about that. I appreciate it. Newly released police radio recordings from the Parkland massacre appear to show more failures by Broward County police as they responded to the attack. Fox correspondent Matt Finn has been breaking news on this story for days now. He joins us with what he's got. Hey, Matt.
Tucker, we know that every officer that responded to the Parkland, Florida shooting was potentially risking their lives, and there are many stories of heroism emerging from that day. However, newly released dispatch recordings seem to confirm what we have been reporting right here on this show, and that is that the commanding officer and some of the first responders focused on blocking traffic and setting up a perimeter instead of rushing in to kill the shooter, which is what they're trained to do. One ranking officer tells Fox News tonight that the responders that day should have said, "You take the first floor, I'll take the second, you take the third, and we won't stop until we kill the shooter." In a portion of the audio you are about to hear, a male voice believed to be the disgraced school resource officer identifies what school building he thinks the shots are coming from and then commands officers to stay away from that building. Noteworthy that this goes against his initial statement that he didn't go in the school because he didn't know where the shots were coming from. You're also going to hear a female voice of the commanding officer. Her two audible commands about a perimeter, not killing the shooter. And the sheriff's office has defended itself, explaining that the alleged bad commands happened after the shooter stopped firing. But as you're about to hear, it seems officers did not know where the shooter was for a long time after the officers prioritized the traffic, with one officer even saying that there might be more bullets coming from a window. Here's some of the audio recordings.
Shutting down east on Holmberg. We need somebody to shut down Holmberg. Do not approach the 12 or 1300 buildings. Stay at least 500 feet away at this point.
I know there's lots going on. Do we have the perimeter set up right now and everybody clearing out of the school? I want to make sure that we have a perimeter set up and the school's being, all the kids are getting out, so we need to shut down around the school.
Is he still shooting?
54. We're trying to locate. We don't know where he's at. We got gunshot holes either coming into or out of that building on the west side, third floor.
One ranking law enforcement officer that just listened to the audio we did sent a response to Fox News, writing in part, "Wow, I just listened to the first 10 minutes of the dispatch tapes. It was very difficult to listen to. We failed in many ways. I don't know if I'll be able to sleep tonight." Also, here is one parent who tonight tells Fox News the entire community of Parkland parents are irate.
Lives were being lost while the deputies who were on site were more concerned about closing off roadways than they were about going into the building and stopping the shooter and saving lives.
Today, Florida's Republican Governor Rick Scott approved new legislation that would require anyone purchasing a gun in the state to be 21 years old, and the NRA immediately filed a lawsuit. Tucker.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Jeff Brando is the president of the Broward County Police Benevolent Association, and he joins us tonight. Jeff, thanks a lot for coming on. You heard Matt Finn read the email he received from an officer, you probably know the person, saying he was in effect heartbroken to hear that tape. What was your reaction to it?
Well, I listened to the tapes, and I'm also in receipt of a chronology of events that came out from the Broward Sheriff's Office with 4 different sources: the video, Coral Springs Fire, Coral Springs Police, and BSO Dispatch.
How did this happen? I don't understand how authorities with firearms on the scene never entered the building while people were being murdered. Do you?
No, I can't explain that.
Can you guess as to what might have happened? Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No, I haven't, and I just don't understand where the one video has the school resource deputy at the administration building, then heading towards Building 12, and then taking up a position outside of Building 12. That's on the chronology of events, and it's also on the video.
But it seems like at least some of these guys knew that there was shooting inside the building. So, you don't want to impugn people's motives, but other than cowardice, what would be the explanation for that?
Well, I don't have an explanation for that person not going in. However, I could tell you that the Coral Springs Police Department, they were getting all the 911 calls were going to Coral Springs Fire. So if you're in the city of Parkland and you dial 911, it goes to Coral Springs Fire Dispatch because they provide fire services and emergency services for the city of Parkland. So all the live intel was going to the Coral Springs police officers. And the chronology that I have shows that Coral Springs and Broward Sheriff's officers simultaneously entered the structure and started to clear it.
Do you think it's a little weird that the sheriff of Broward County, now that we know that his department failed, is telling me that I need to surrender my gun rights? That's the lesson?
I'm sorry. I'll say that again. I'm sorry.
Why isn't the sheriff of Broward County being held accountable for this?
I can't answer that. I would say that, the buck stops at the top, but I can't answer for the sheriff.
Yeah, well, I hope he is. Thank you very much for joining us.
Very welcome.
Well, a Belgian man has been convicted of a dastardly crime. He's being ordered to pay almost $4,000. What did he do? He said something sexist, and Belgium has a law against that. It criminalizes phrases that, quote, express contempt for women. Now that law has been put to use for the first time. Kathy Aru is founding publisher of Catalina magazine. She's our Sherpa into progressive America. She thinks this might not be a bad idea for our country, and she joins us tonight. Kathy, great to see you.
Hi, good to see you.
So you think that we could learn something from Belgium, that maybe we should criminalize sexist speech.
Yes.
Would we also criminalize sexist thought? I'm just trying to get the parameters here.
I would say sexist speech and sexist thought is hateful speech and hateful thought, and people with those hateful thoughts go on to commit hateful crimes. So yeah, why don't we nip it in the bud and stop these guys from continuing to go further and committing violent crimes?
Okay, so we're going to create a new class of thought crime. But you said guys. Would it ever conceivably apply to women? I was watching The Bachelor the other night, which is obviously an hour-long exploitation of women. Hard to think of a more sexist spectacle than that. And a lot of the producers are women. So would they be up for sexism charges in your world?
Absolutely not. You know that women as a minority in this country, even though we are the majority, we're still the minority because white men are in charge. And it's hard to be a sexist and put the majority down when you're still considered the minority. So no, women cannot be sexist. We are the victims of sexism.
But what if you were like Anna Wintour, okay, and you had a magazine wholly devoted to exploiting women's bodies and basically encouraging eating disorders? Because you're a woman, you still would not be sexist?
Well, that's an industry that makes a living off of those things. And believe it or not, the highest paid women in the world are models. So unfortunately, the only way that women could make more money than men are through modeling and through these magazines. So she actually did a favor to women by showing them in these magazines and helping women make more than men. So sadly.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, sadly.
So sexist speech and sexist thought will be criminalized.
Yeah, because it's hateful.
In the Republic of Kathy Aru. What would the punishment be? Would these be misdemeanors or felonies?
Well, I mean, I think these men would move on to commit crimes. So should we nip it in the bud? Should we listen to people when they're saying hateful things and get them right when they're saying these sexist comments?
Right.
And, yeah, make it a felony. Put them away, make them learn their lesson. And when they come out, they'll be better people. So teach them a lesson.
Maybe they would come out as sad and broken people. Would that bother you?
I don't think well, if they're not hurtful and violent, it would not upset me if they're sad. No. I mean, they're sad, but they're not aggressive and violent. So be it. Yeah.
How would, since sexist thought would be illegal, how would we
sexist
determine?
Language, not thought, language.
Okay. Can we define sexist? So, like, for example, is it
hurtful to women?
Hurtful to women,
yes.
Right? But all women don't have the same standard for what's hurtful. So, for example, is it sexist to open a door for a woman, or is it sexist not to open a door for a woman?
I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think if a woman is offended, then, yeah, it might be the wrong thing to do. So sexism, it's hard to tell, but women who are aware of it, feel it, understand it, and yeah, sexism is alive and well. And those of us who realize it want an end to it. We want to be treated equally.
Right.
So, yeah, we have to teach these people that that is wrong. And this person in Belgium did call this police officer, better suited for another job because this was a woman. It was a police officer, and that was sexist. The things he said were awful, and he should be put away.
Well, speaking of, well, it sounds like he's being punished.
Yeah,
finally, I mean, so if we're creating a whole new class of crime, obviously we're repealing the First Amendment and 250 years of tradition in order to do it. But
well,
whatever.
It's Belgium. It's not their amendment.
No, but I'm just saying if it were here, but you know, to make an omelet, you break some eggs. So, but we'd also need to hire a whole new class of law enforcement, obviously, to enforce these laws, kind of like the Saudis do. What would that be like? Where would there be speech police in public places? Could they come into your home? Like, how would you do this?
Well, this country already has it. There are profanity laws. So this country's had laws that are about 100 years old. They're according to municipalities and according to different states. You can't say bad words in public within an officer or a children's earshot. So we already have those kind of laws in this country. So why not reintroduce the profanity laws with sexism laws and move on from words that offend to actions and concepts that offend and that are violent?
What's going to happen to rap music?
Rap music? Well, I think teenagers are going to continue to enjoy it, and parents are going to continue to hate it, and hopefully the rap stars will learn to rap about nicer things and not teach such hatred.
Yeah, they better. They're going to be in Kathy Aru prison. So of course we're rooting for them. Kathy, thank you very much. Good to see you.
No problem. Thanks.
Oh, you're out of time. It's time for Final Exam, where two news professionals face one another in a battle of knowledge. You can play along at home as they do. Joining us tonight, Fox Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry. He won the battle of defending champions last week against Brett Baer. Quite a contest. He gets to return for another matchup. His challenger this week, Fox Washington correspondent, our old friend Jillian Turner. Okay, so you both know the rules, but for the sake of consistency and because judges demand it, here they are. Hands on buzzers. I ask the questions. First one to buzz in gets to answer. You have to wait until I finish asking the question in order to do that. Every correct answer is worth a point. If you get it wrong, we deduct a point from your total best of 5 wins. Clear?
Mm-hmm. It's International Women's Day.
These are the international rules, too.
I just thought that you might want to mention that.
Absolutely. And that does not give you an advantage.
Yeah, what?
Okay, here's the first question. After winning the Academy Award for Best Actress on Sunday night, Frances McDormand had something unusual happen to her Oscar. What was it? Ed Henry.
Some guy stole it. Or
I don't believe that. Some guy stole it. Making this up. Roll tape. Did quote, some guy steal it?
This morning, Terry Bryant isn't celebrating.
Thank you.
Instead, charged with grand theft larceny after allegedly swiping the Best Actress Oscar from winner Frances McDormand.
And what's the long-term plan when you steal an Oscar? Do you hope your friends didn't notice you didn't win Best Actress?
You can't boast that you
Some guy stole it. Indeed, you were right.
I don't know what his job was, but he was backstage or something. It wasn't Warren Beatty.
It's worth about $8 at the local
I'm mad I
pawn shop.
didn't get that because I watched the Oscars.
I didn't watch the Oscars.
For the
But
first time in
watch
years.
the larceny backstage.
No,
The larceny didn't happen in real time. Anyway.
Exactly. Question 2. One of the world's most popular sodas announced this week they'll soon be selling their first ever alcoholic drink. What company is it? Soda maker selling booze. Care to guess?
Can you give us a hint?
That's the judges have a hint, but I think it's too. Okay, I'll give it. Based in Atlanta. Ed Henry.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, he says. Is it Coca-Cola or could it be 7-Up?
Something's brewing. Coca-Cola launches a new alcoholic drink in Japan. Its very first attempt at breaking into the booze business in more than 130 years.
This is going to be controversial.
And of course, the trick was in Japan.
Right, but I didn't say that. But I worked.
No, you didn't.
Oh,
But you got Coca-Cola. All right.
Yeah,
Jillian.
because I asked for a hint.
You both got the hint, to be fair, though. By the way, let me just say, I am rooting for you. I've never admitted that. Okay. Don't blame me. Question 3. It's Saturday's Gridiron Dinner, at which Bret Baier, by the way, played a starring role. The president roasted Washington elite. He zeroed in on one congresswoman for her claim that we can secure our southern border by mowing the grass there. What member of Congress did he target? Ed Henry.
Nancy Pelosi.
So you're saying that Nancy Pelosi claimed we could tighten our borders by mowing the grass?
Not at the Gridiron, but I did a story on this for Shannon.
Okay, we'll see if your memory serves.
We all have a responsibility to protect our borders. Should there be fencing? Should there be technology? Should they mow the grass so that people can't hide in it?
Wow, she really said that. Yeah. And we have the tape.
Right.
Okay, you can still turn it around, by the way, Jillian. Yes, you can.
I just can't answer anymore because I'll lose points if I lose.
Okay, well, you'll see if you can get this one. Question 4. A zoo in Indonesia is being criticized by animal rights activists. A video emerged this week showing an orangutan at the zoo doing something only adult humans typically do. What was it?
Hint.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Hint, the Surgeon General disapproves. Jillian Turner.
Smoking?
He was smoking.
Yes. You knew that.
Roll
You
tape.
just gave
Congrats.
that to me.
An orangutan is caught smoking a cigarette at a zoo. Just look, you can see Odin puffing away like an experienced smoker. He knows what to do. It's crazy. A visitor threw the lit cigarette at the primates enclosure in Indonesia. Officials say he likely learned how to smoke from watching humans. Isn't that crazy?
Whoa.
But who gave him the cigarette?
I don't know, but they're hassling him. He has to stand outside the building when he smokes now. People look down on him. I mean, really? Anyway, final question. If you drive by McDonald's today, there's a chance you might see the famed golden arches turned upside down to form a W. Who is the fast food chain honoring? Jillian Turner.
Women.
You don't think it's George W. Bush?
It might be.
But you say women.
But I'm going with women.
Going with women. Is it women?
Today is International Women's Day, and there it is on your screen. McDonald's has flipped the arches. They've turned the M upside down. It's a W for women.
As a woman, did you eat a Big Mac today?
I did not.
You did not.
But I was touched.
You were touched. Wow. You know what? This is one of those games that had it going on one more round, it might have been a little different. Jillian Turner,
you mean if it wasn't rigged?
You were great. You were great.
I studied.
Oh, all the answers are in there.
I found this.
You're the only person with that book, by the way.
There is an inscription to Ed, 9/11/2003.
Not really.
A reporter I'd never want on my tail. Best, Tucker Carlson.
Is that true? Ed Henry and I have known each other a long time. That's my handwriting. That's unbelievable.
Found it this week. New book coming out soon.
15 years ago. Ed Henry, by the way, speaking of journalism, we're going to give you the coveted Eric Wemple mug that shows our friend Eric Wemple from the Washington Post in his one appearance on our show, and then, of course, our triumphant response.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Use it with honor. Jillian Turner, please come back, Jillian.
Welcome to Fox.
Ed, we'll see you next week. It's been about 14 months since Obama left the White House. Do you miss him? Miss his lectures shaming police and calling for Australia-style gun laws? His moral superiority? His superciliousness? Do you miss him explaining how it was impossible for Russia to rig an election only to treat his successor like a spy when the outcome didn't go his way? Netflix is willing to gamble you do. Apparently, the company is negotiating a deal that would pay Obama and his wife to create a show so they never have to stop lecturing you. We're excited. Hope you are too. Have a great weekend. Good night from Washington. Sean Hannity's next.